Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Things Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. I'm Mr. Jason Roscom. With me here each and every single week, the Darth Vader to my Palpatine, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Jason.
How are you?
Did that sound as tired as I feel?
Yes, it sounded very,
I'm
very,
very tired.
Oh, we got Scott in the chat already. Hello, Scott. So,
why is my chat not up? I got the thing. Oh, I never hit this. I was like gesturing and everything, and it never opened up. So
Dave just woke up from a nap, so you'll have to forgive his lack of preparation.
And honestly, Dave could use another 6-7 hours of nap.
Yeah. So before you take another nap, what are we talking about this week?
So we chose the quick and easy path, and due to Jason's schedule, and our both of us, and we're doing the top 7 Star Wars vehicles.
Yes.
Top
now, why
7.
did we pick 7, Dave?
Because 1977. That's why.
That's right, because we don't do things the way all the other shows do. We don't do top 5 or top 10. Well, we have, but for now, we're doing something different. We're doing top 7. God damn it!
Well, listen, we had 90 minutes, right? And there's going to be banter, and I'm like, oh shit, we got to get this done. And 7, if we were doing 10, we'd be rushing it, and then 5 maybe is not enough to really encapsulate how we feel about things. So 7 it is. So we went with 7.
I haven't listened to last week's episode with the Poe Dameron and the whole, bantering for an hour and then, oh, fuck, we got to talk about these comics real quick. So I'm curious how that came out.
There's already some, already in the chat, there's some discussion about the ships.
Oh, good. Well, then we'll have some good inputs as we go through our lists. But until then, we got a couple of other bullet points to talk about. So, Dave, I'm going to throw these first couple to you since you're the one who created the notes today.
Yeah, that is like Dave did things. All right. So first things first, want to get a shout out or whatever to all of our listeners who may be affected by Hurricane Florence as it's still meandering its way up into the Northeast right now. My sister lives in Fayetteville, and she's thankfully was in an area where they don't get flooded out or anything else. So she actually came through it fairly well. Some pieces of her fence got knocked down from the high winds, but otherwise they made out okay. And my friends that live down in Myrtle Beach, they evacuated, and they're back, and everything seems to be okay. So. But if you were affected by Florence, and hopefully you can, if you're not getting us live on YouTube, you'll be able to download us later when you get power back and everything else. As Jason and I alluded to the last week in the podcast, we know what that hurricane situation is like from being up here for Sandy. So the thoughts are going out to you guys.
Indeed.
For this week in Star Wars, I chose because the episode's been getting out, a little bit later than usual.
I have reasons.
And they're legitimate. So we're taping on the 17th. It's a Monday, and this week in Star Wars I chose was September 21st, which is in a few days, 2004. Okay, so we're talking 14 years ago.
Yeah.
The original trilogy is released for the first time on DVD.
Now, I know there were several iterations of the original trilogy released on DVD. Is this the theatrical cuts? Because that was released one time on DVD, or is this just the first time it appeared on any form of DVD? And
it didn't get any more specific than that in the Star Wars app. It just said the original trilogy is released for the first time on DVD.
Okay.
So that would lead me to believe that it was the first and only release of the theatrical cuts. The cover for the DVDs that it shows, it's the silver and black with Skywalker holding up the lightsaber. The old school, poster look to it. So I don't know. Take that what it is, but. The only reason I chose that was because one of the Instagram discussions we had on the 14th, I got my downloaded my copy of Solo.
Sweet.
Through iTunes. And I haven't had a chance to watch the whole movie yet, just because I've been so busy with schoolwork. But I did sit down and, I did watch a little bit of it, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I put it out there on the Instagram, like, "Hey, Solo's out today. Who's downloaded it? Who's waiting for Blu-ray?" Mm-hmm. I will say that the majority of the people, I didn't take down numbers, but just like reading through the comments on the thread, the majority of people are waiting for the Blu-ray and the DVD to come out.
I did notice that, yeah.
So it's interesting that people are still like, oh shit,
we're still clinging to those physical copies. And hey, I'm one of them, and I know exactly which edition I'm getting. By the way, I'm getting the Best Buy exclusive Steelbook series. It's like a 3-disc Steelbook case and everything else. So That's the one that I'm waiting for, and it's the 4K UHD. So just like with Last Jedi, I'm getting the 4K UHD version. So.
I get the impression that's what a lot of people are doing with the 4K. Like, I don't have anything that plays 4K at the house, so it's not a big deal to me. Like, I have a standard 1080p television, so the 4K experience really doesn't mean that much to me.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, like you're not an anomaly. Like, a lot of people are waiting for that. And I think some people too were concerned. I know there was some concern with getting to the extras and getting to the deleted scenes and what was available and things like that. I mean, I know for me, if you download it to your iPhone, right? Like, just say, like, maybe when you're driving that you'll put on a movie to listen to while you're driving. Definitely not to watch, because that would be distracting. But say you put on the movie to listen to, and like once you turn the iPhone sideways, it like the extras and stuff pop up along the bottom. So you don't have to. Well, somebody had brought up, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting who it was. It was one of our regulars that said, like, I hate having to go all the way to the end of the movie to get to the extras. Like, I know
all the way to work.
Yeah, you just have to turn it to the side. So anyway, but yeah, I brought that out because as the DVD original trilogy was released on the 21st, on the 25th, the Blu-ray 4K ultra high definition hand job will be out for everyone else who's waiting to get it. So
yep. So I'm waiting for that. I wish these companies would start doing something to where, like, if you say I pre-ordered from Best Buy my fucking Steelbook $40 rigmarole, that they'd give me some sort of fucking redemption code early. Be like, okay, thank you for pre-ordering. We'll take your money. Here's a code so you can redeem it on iTunes now, because it does come with a digital copy too, but you got to fucking wait for it to come in. So
they want you to have the anticipation of waiting for that.
It's been built. It's done. The anticipation's already there. I don't need any more. Just give me the code so I can watch it early. But whatever, it's out. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have some more post home video release observations about Solo to talk about here on the show. Could be a good topic for an upcoming episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you actually get your steel cut hand job version.
Steel cut hand job. I like that. We're gonna have to hold on. Let me write this down.
So, while you're writing it down, I'm catching. There's a lot of activity on the chat already.
That's great. So maybe we should be doing this every Monday night if this is when we get the biggest audience in the chat. But anyway, we're gonna hop right into our week of Star Wars. I'm gonna start first of all because I don't really have much to say. I've been super fucking busy over the last week. I talked about it last week. Here we did 10-hour days for 6 days last week. My only day off was yesterday, Sunday, and I had to use that to catch up on shit like fucking laundry and doing dishes and all kinds of other bullshit. I had to grocery shop. So didn't get a whole lot of chance to do much. Sorry, your dogs are very distracting.
I know, it is very distracting.
Though I mentioned last week that I still hadn't seen my promotion up to that point. Well, I finally got my promotion. So I am now officially a senior master sergeant in the Air Force.
Cue the celebration music.
Yes. Yeah, it was a long time coming. And I'll go on this. Let's take a trip to the Sidebar Cantina really quick, because I know I've said this to you guys privately, but I've never really said this publicly. A lot of where I am right now in my career, I really owe to both Dave of the All Things Star Wars podcast, and our good friend, frequent guest, the John. Because we've mentioned that Dave and I worked together for 9 years before we started this podcast and before I left to do other things and he retired. And what I've never really mentioned before, though, was that when I first went over to work at that squadron with Dave, I went over there with the biggest chip on my shoulder. I was essentially forced to go over there. Didn't really want to at first. A lot of bullshit going on in my life at the time. And I was really floundering in the beginning. But Dave and our friend, the John, kind of befriended me, took me under their wings, and they were really good mentors, really good friends. And I owe everything as far as like where I am in my career to those two guys. So I just want to say publicly, thank you, Dave. And if you're listening, John, thank you as well.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It wasn't easy at first.
No,
he was a tough nut to crack.
Yes.
But yeah, listen, you worked hard. You were given some. One thing about if you're going to give somebody some guidance and some mentorship, that person's got to be willing to do it and make the changes and then go forward. And you were one of those people, so that makes all the difference in the world. But you get like you said, there was a lot of bullshit in the beginning, and it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely. Yeah, I'm glad to see it. It's fine. I'm glad it's finally here. I'm glad that day is finally here.
Yeah.
And, now we can start working on your long-term plan for what's going to happen next for the next stripe.
Yes, for my final part of world domination.
That's right.
But in the meantime, speaking of world domination, I was playing a little bit more of that Star Wars Commander on my iPhone. I was hoping that this was going to be like some cool real-time strategy game, just in a mobile form. Unfortunately, it's a fucking tower defense game. So if you're familiar at all with the cell phone games, mobile games, tower defense games are a dime a fucking dozen. They're really not that complicated. And that's essentially what Star Wars Commander is. Although, one cool thing about it is there's a lot of voice acting in it, and Darth Vader has an appearance. And the guy who does his voice in this was fucking phenomenal. I did a search. I checked IMDb. I checked all the Star Wars pages I could find. I wanted to know who did this fucking voice for Vader, and I couldn't find it. It's nowhere out there. So
it's got to be Chad Vader.
That's what I was thinking, because it sounded just like the guy that does the Chad Vader voice. Because if you've heard him do any of the official Star Wars stuff, like when he did Force Unleashed or anything, he sounded really fucking good. And this voice sounded just like that one. So I'm thinking it's that guy. But
gotta be Chad Vader. And if it's not, then we're just going to pretend it is.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, that's really my week in a nutshell. Not a whole lot going on just because I've been super fucking busy. So what about you, Dave?
It's scary to look over, like, as I'm like doing stuff and glancing over at the chat and see, like, I see pegging. I see,
I saw a lot of holiday special talk.
Yeah. I'm not a crook. It's like, oh, okay. Well, we're not gonna bring up the B word on the actual podcast. We don't want to get in trouble. But anyway, okay. big love and holiday hand jobs.
Oh my god,
it's like, wow, we are.
And these are the types of listeners that we draw to the All Things.
Right. These are the people that are mostly in the sidebar cantina.
Yes.
So as far as my week goes, I'm gonna give my top off shout out to Fuck Cancer again. Just because it's so recent still from us losing our cousin, and we're still going through a lot of stuff with that, and found out that my aunt is actually going through something also. So again, everybody raised both fucking fingers to cancer for the Martin family. And yeah, it's fucking sick of it, man. Fucking cancer. Oh
yeah. God.
So it's been a tough week. It really has. Just try to stay focused and sidebar. It's sidebar of sidebars. So I have this I don't know if you remember last week, but I was listening to the podcast, the audio version, for the first time in a while. And I mentioned about how my ear itched. Well, my ear still itches. It's been 2 weeks. There might be something growing in my ear. I don't know, but it fucking itches not stop. I want to take this pen, this U.S. government Skillcraft pen. I want to jam it straight into my fucking ear to just make it stop. It's the fucking worst. So like then now my beard needs to be trimmed, so my fucking face itches. I'm a fucking mess, dude. I'm a fucking mess.
It sounds like it. Holy shit.
I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow to see like, hey, take one of those fucking things, the light things, and look at my fucking ear and tell me what the hell's going on, and then like give me something to jam in there to make it stop. I just want it to stop.
Like, sir, you've got a ladybug in there. Let me get that out for you.
Yeah, please. But there's no noise, right? You like, in all seriousness, if it was a bug or something, because I went through this whole thing with the VA today. Like, so you call up, I want to make an appointment. All right, sir. Well, since you have symptoms, you have to talk to the nurses people. Fine, whatever. So I wait on hold for 25 minutes. Some nurse answers the phone. I was like, my right ear itches uncontrollably, and she's like, what? Yeah. And then she's like asking me all these questions. I'm like, no, I don't have an ear infection. No, I don't have this. No, there's no pain. There's nothing. It just itches. It's driving me insane. It's been 2 weeks. It really is. It's driving me insane.
Wow.
Anyway, fuck cancer.
Oh my God.
So anyway, last week, the only Star Wars thing really, well, that's not necessarily true, but went to Atlantic City on Wednesday last week. Mm-hmm. And my mother and father-in-law, they got tickets at the new Hard Rock down in Atlantic City, which is beautiful, by the way. If you're in the area and have ever had thoughts of going to Atlantic City, or there's a lot of shitty areas in Atlantic City that I'm like, don't go, just stay close to the boardwalk. The new Hard Rock is on the boardwalk. It's beautiful. They redid the entire inside. It was an old Trump. It was like Trump Taj Mahal back in the day. And when Trump sold the name. It wasn't like only his name was on the properties at some point, I guess, when he was off gassing and doing whatever he does. So I thought that I was going to walk in there. I was going to see like Hard Rock taped over like a bunch of old Trump signs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really thought it was just going to be kind of dingy and everything. Dude, it was like what you can say about Atlantic City, if you've ever been to Las Vegas, is that there are two completely different places. Like when you go into a casino, there's a different feel to it.
Yeah.
And this Hard Rock feels like you're going into a Vegas casino.
Oh, really?
And it's very, very upscale. It's it's obviously what they did was they gutted almost the entire casino floor and put in all new shit. There's they put in a much bigger like concert venue and everything else. So really, really nice. My brother-in-law actually works down there. He works at the Hard Rock. So if you're planning on going to AC, go to the Hard Rock. You really enjoy yourself. Anyway, my in-laws had tickets to the comedy show. They took my wife and I. And so we went to the comedy show, saw, it had two comics playing on a Wednesday night, right? So one of the comedians was Craig Gass. Now, if you follow us on Instagram and you're follow us on Facebook and everything else, you would have saw the promo video that after the show, comedian Craig Gass did for the podcast. And it was fucking great. Like the background to that was, and if you don't know who Craig Gass was, he worked on a Howard Stern show. He does voices on Family Guy, American Dad. He's had some movie roles. He was on Sex and the City and shit like that, right? He's fairly well known. But he's like, his big thing was like, yeah, and here I am working on a Wednesday night in Atlantic City. Mm-hmm. So you come out of the thing and he's signing autographs and taking pictures with people. And Kathy had said, shout out to my wife, the best, she's the best PR person for the podcast on the East Coast.
Yes. And
so she goes out there. She's like, do you have any cards? Like we can give them a card, and get a thing for the podcast. I'm like, no, I don't have any cards on me. And then she's yelling at me for not having the cards. which I'm notoriously bad at. And I guarantee you Jason doesn't have fucking cards on him either.
No.
So she's like, all right, well, maybe he'll do something. Maybe he'll do something for the podcast. I'm like, honey, he's not going to do that. I mean, like, you know, it just doesn't seem like something he would do. So I go get my picture taken with him. And Kathy says, hey, listen, my husband has a podcast. Like, so he turns and looks at me and I'm like, hey, hi. Right. And, like, my husband has a podcast about Star Wars. And do you think you could do something like a promo or something? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. Like, you know what I'll do? I'll do Tracy Morgan. I'll do Al Pacino, and I'll do who else to do? Gene Simmons. Right. I'm like, fucking yeah, that'd be great. So he takes my phone, and takes my fucking iPhone, like, you know, swipes over, does the video. It's like, all right, I'm gonna record you, and you set me up. I'm like, huh, okay. I'm not a fucking actor, improv guy, right? I talk about fucking Star Wars for 90 minutes and football for 45 minutes of that. So I'm like, okay. So, and then that's what you got was the video. So he basically, like, he took my iPhone and was filming me, and then he'd like turned it on him and did the voices, and it was fucking great. I doubt he'll ever listen to it, but, you know, Craig Gass, if you're listening, thanks so much for the promo. I pushed it up. I paid like $25 to have it go through Instagram as a promotional thing, and it hit like
sweet.
It hit like an extra 1,000 people. Usually winning. I don't know how many more people we got out of it. I didn't really follow. It was just something like, once I posted it, I wanted to to maximize the potential of it, and we'll have it forever. But so that was. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm going to take some of those clips and I'm going to eventually create a new intro for the podcast, and I'm going to incorporate maybe like one per different intro, you know, him doing the Al Pacino voice is one intro. And then, so we're definitely going to use that and maximize it.
So the best part was at the end of that, right? So I'm like, oh, that was fucking fantastic. And you can see me kind of laughing at the end, because it was really fun. There was no, like, the setup that I described, that was it. And then then we had the back and forth, right? So so at the end of it, I'm like, oh man, that was great. And I was talking about the podcast for a little bit. Like, yeah, it's like we're a couple Air Force vets. You know, it's a not safe for work podcast. He's like, well, that's great, because if that was a G-rated podcast, you would have never been able to use that clip. So because, you know, it drops motherfucker in there, Yoda taking a shit, you know, it's fucking great. So, and one of the things he brought up, and I have a note somewhere, like this is how dumb I am, right? So he's telling a story about how he has a friend of his that's in a band. It kills me that I don't remember the story. Like, he's telling me the story, and in my mind, I'm replaying the promo that we just taped, not necessarily listening to him. And so he was talking about it, and he says that you know, hey, there's this guy, and he was on this guy's podcast. The one guy he knew, he was in a famous 80s band, and I can't remember it. And so, but anyway, so he's on this podcast, and one of the co-hosts happened to be, he was a Gamorrean guard.
Like an actual Gamorrean guard?
Gamorrean guard. So he has all like these pictures of him in the suit, like with his head off, you know, and then like taking pictures with Mark Hamill and Princess Leia. So he said, like, when he was doing a podcast, this guy was like, had all this great stuff about Star Wars. I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. And so later Kathy was like, yeah, you should really tell that story on the podcast. I'm like, fuck, I don't remember a lot of it. So you're getting the abridged version of what Dave remembers from the story that he told. Yeah. But anyway, very cool for him to do. Check him out, Craig Gass. I think it's like facebook.com/ILoveGass with 2 S's. And you'll see all his stuff. That was a big one. I thought that was great.
That was awesome.
We woke up Jason, you know.
I was in bed and I get a text from you, and it's this video. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but he really does sound like Al Pacino, and he's saying all things Star Wars. That's great.
Yeah, it was great. And again, full props to my wife for setting all that up, because there's no fucking way I'm going to be like, hey, dude, would you do like a promo or something for the podcast?
Yeah,
like,
it's probably only because
an idiot right now.
Yeah, if you had asked, he'd have been like, no, go fuck off. But I think it's because Kathy asked. He's like, okay.
And to segue into that, because I glanced at the chat and I see that Hank Hill, this is part of a discussion in here. So we've talked about it before. My wife can't stand the Hank Hill impression, and if I had not been so like just in the moment, then I would have totally have done like a Hank Hill to offset, like because he has done Family Guy, and I would have loved to have known what he did in Family Guy. I think if he was actually did some Family Guy Star Wars characters, that he probably would have mentioned it because we were talking about Star Wars. But
you would think
if he would have done like some Family Guy Star Wars like reference, that like I don't know, we could have played it off with my Hank Hill. But yeah, so that's why we haven't heard Hank in a while, and I'm still working on my Hank Hill Han Solo movie. So we'll get to that at some point. But it does bring up like him doing the promo makes me realize that like, wow, there'd be a lot of fun stuff that we could do with Hank Hill in within Star Wars, saying just the most off the wall shit.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
nice.
So I had all the other things real quick. I did download Solo. The only thing I watched I watched the deleted scenes, because I really wanted to see that stuff. I wanted to see in the group we had kind of I think Bronco Fett had done a screen grab of Imperial Cadet Han Solo. Watch the deleted scenes. I'm not going to talk about it. We'll save that for a Solo dedicated episode.
Yeah, let's wait for the Blu-ray to come out for everybody who's waiting for the Blu-ray. Watch it on that, and then we'll probably do like a recap of all the extras and shit afterwards.
Yeah, compare and contrast, see if there's anything on the Blu-ray that's not on the iTunes.
See.
So 3PO. And so I did get to watch a little bit of that. I haven't watched a full Solo movie, like I said. I just haven't had time. And just because I happened to be listening to the podcast earlier today, the Laserdisc thing popped up. Remember in the Week in Star Wars, we were talking about the Laserdiscs, and I went in and put bids in for those Laserdiscs. Well, I didn't win them.
No.
But they went for $51, which was below the buy it now price. So if I really wanted to spend $50, I probably could have had these things. But they're still out there. There's if you go on eBay and look for the Laserdiscs, those the ones we were talking about, the original trilogy Laserdiscs, they're out there. You can get them for under $100. So
it's interesting. It'd be a unique addition to your collection.
It would. Even though like I got yelled at this week for my space behind me here looking a little cluttered, is what I was told. So I have to figure out how I can like put shelves up or something to get this displayed a little bit better. But if I had time for that, I'd be at the studio fucking doing work at the studio.
Yeah.
I still have to get that shit done before you get back. So anyway, that was my week. I did want to, like Jason said, I built the notes up. I wanted to make a special shout out to our top West Coast PR person, Bronco Fett. There was a little thing he put up today. It was
the video.
Yeah, the little video. It's like Star Wars, and it had all things, Star Wars podcast. It came around it. It's just a fun little like drawing around the word Star Wars, and it's fucking great. And he's really he posts out there for everyone that'll see his stuff to listen to the podcast. And we know if you follow him on Facebook, which you may or may not, or on Twitter or whatever, he's in the middle of a Star Wars marathon right now. Apparently he took a break from the his Star Wars marathon. I think his wife's out of town or something, and to listen to the podcast as we do it live.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's doing a full up Star Wars marathon right now.
Nice.
So yeah, shout out to Bronco Fett, our West Coast PR rep. That title is there for somebody else. Somebody else wants to get out there. There's definitely, we got lots of love in especially our members of the Sidebar Cantina. We got to work on that, like an official thing for the Sidebar Cantina. It's kind of a work in progress right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have another shout out to, if you're going to post something, if you're going to go to Comic-Con with your All Things Star Wars shirt that you got from Teespring, make sure we know and we see it, because we're definitely going to want to talk about it. And I'm pretty sure it was Mark Somerville, right?
Yep.
It was at the Comic-Con. Yep. It was good. See, I got that off memory.
Yep. And that was in, I think it was Cincinnati, right?
I believe
Cincinnati.
We're going to go with it. We're going to go with Cincinnati because why not?
Because I'm assuming it's all part of the Wizard World gig, because they go to Philly, they do the big one in San Diego, but they go all over the country to all the major cities in the country, and they do the Comic-Con at different times of the year. So I'm assuming that this was the Cincinnati version of the Wizard World Comic-Con.
Yeah, we're going to go with it until we're corrected otherwise.
Yes.
And yes, and Tony Ferrari is the Canadian contingent for the PR group.
Yes.
Again, just checking in the chat. But anyway, so Mark Somerville at Comic-Con representing the podcast, which was awesome. So apparently he got his picture taken with LeVar Burton. We're all nerds in here, so we know who LeVar Burton was from some other Star-related series.
Yes, we're crossing the streams a little bit, but that's fine.
It's fine. He was wearing a Reading Rainbow shirt, which was fucking great. It was just fun for just that. But apparently Mark wanted him to point at the All Things Star Wars logo on his shirt, and he was being a little prick about it. So you know what, LeVar Burton, you're a bitch. You just fucking you got a fan there. Like you just point at the logo. It doesn't mean you're not in Star Trek anymore.
Yeah.
Just don't be a bitch. Anyway, I wanted to make sure hey, thanks LeVar Burton for being cool, and hopefully Mark didn't have to pay for that autograph or that picture or anything, because that'd be a real even bigger bitch move.
You pretty much do it for any celebrity at these events. It's got to be something. It depends on how much they charge. Let's take a quick trip to the Sidebar Cantina, and at one of the ones that I went to in Philly, I knew Shannon Elizabeth was going to be there. If you remember Shannon Elizabeth, the fucking beauty from the late 90s, early 2000s. She was Nadia in American Pie. She was also in Scary Movie. She was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Beautiful, beautiful woman. She was at the one in Philly. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to see if she'll sign my DVD copy of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So I go out there. Okay, cool. How much would it be for an autograph? She wanted like $50 just to do an autograph. I'm like,
fucking dollars?
Nope. I put the DVD right back in my bag, and I'm like, fuck that. And it was more if you wanted to have like a conversation and get a picture with her and all this other shit. So like the celebrities individually determine their own prices for the shit. Which
who's paying $50 honestly for that?
There were not many people at her booth. I'll just say that.
Yeah, so, you just priced yourself out of fucking most of these nerds. They're going to spend that $50 on a couple Black Series figures or something. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, I think I paid like $40 for Ray Park's autograph to have a quick conversation with him and get a picture with him. So,
right.
And what, Shannon Elizabeth wants $50? Fuck you.
Yeah.
So, all right. So coming back from the cantina real quick. We got our shout outs out of the way. Should we go back into the cantina, or do we want to knock out our main topic now and then maybe save the rest of the sidebar stuff for the end?
No, fuck that. We're talking football.
Okay,
we're getting into the Sidebar Cantina for football. This is going to be a quick one, all right? Because there was some love being thrown back and forth within the cantina for our college football team. So we're just going to the football portion of the All Things Star Wars podcast. First of all, PSU wins big, as they should, against a team like Kent State. I mean, we put a redshirt freshman in there who had never thrown a pass in college in his life, and his first pass goes for a touchdown. It was fucking great. So, way to go, Penn State, beating a team that you were absolutely supposed to beat. Michigan, I didn't look at the score. I know they won. Fuck Michigan.
Go Michigan.
It's so fake. So fake.
What are you talking about? I love Michigan. What are you talking about?
Such bullshit. It really is. And anyway,
I threw him off track.
I don't understand. It's the biggest just to fuck with Dave thing that you've done yet. Yeah, you have this fake John Harbaugh connection with the Michigan. You didn't
Jim Harbaugh, thank you.
Whatever. Oh,
John is his brother who coaches the Ravens.
Yeah, and he was a coach for the Eagles. It's the only Harbaugh that I fucking pay attention to.
So anyway, good job, Michigan.
Yeah, but I do want to send my condolences out to Bronco Fett. It was an away game. It was a big game against two ranked opponents with Boise State. Unfortunately, Boise State was at the losing end of that. They took a lot of sacks in that game. Looking at the highlights, so hey, you know what? One loss doesn't kill your season. It does not kill your season. It does make it harder for sure. But you go out there and you start kicking people in the ass, and put up big numbers, and it could still happen. So tough one for Boise State. Send our condolences to Bronco Fett. You know what it is? He needs to travel with the team.
That's what it is. Yeah,
he was traveling with the team, and then they would win. They'd win every game because obviously he is their muse.
Yep.
Going into pro football, the Eagles lost to the motherfucking Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah, that was surprising. I did not see that coming.
Fitzpatrick fucking you know what it was? All right. We need Carson Wentz back, which news alert is it was announced today that Wentz was cleared for contact and is going to be the starter against the Colts at home. And it's going to be fucking great. We need Carson Wentz back because as much as we love Saint Nick here in Philly, he does not have the game. Like, he only performs when he's got a fucking shotgun pointed at his face. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it wasn't until like they were down by so much, and then all of a sudden, like, he could find receivers and like maneuver the pocket and everything else. It's like it was amazing how the same thing happened against Atlanta. Like, he needed to be under like an immense pressure to perform in order to perform. And
right.
I think
sure you'd rather not play from behind every single game.
No, absolutely not. And honestly, you need the mobility threat of Carson Wentz that is going to do things and change the defenses. So I'm really looking forward to putting that loss behind me. By the way, week 2 of last year, the year we won the Super Bowl, we lost to Kansas City by almost the same exact score. And then we went on a 9-game win streak. So does it mean anything? Probably not, but I'm on the wagon.
Nobody goes undefeated, so
yeah. And when they do, they lose the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Sad face.
And I just mentioned, just for the sake of doing it, that the 49ers did beat the Lions. I think there's some Lions fans out there.
That's like me beating up a handicapped person. It's it's
the poor Lions fans out there.
Yeah, you could see the outcome a mile away. But, I mean, hey, at least we got the W. So right now we've got the same record as the Eagles. Woohoo! But I tell you what, the fucking Rams are scary right now. Those guys look really good. And I think both of our teams need to worry about that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we played the Rams last year away and filled the stadium with Eagles fans. So it was basically a home game. And it was close. It was a close game. And we're still not – the Eagles right now are still not 100%. We still don't have our biggest wide receiver. We brought in Mike Wallace to be like a guy to fill that role, and he's out for a few
he got injured.
Yeah, and he never – like, even in camp, he didn't look that great. We brought in that what's his name? I'm blanking. The guy from the Ravens that we brought in. But so we're piecemealing our wide receiver core right now. But like I said, Carson's back. It's going to be it's basically a whole new fucking season now. A whole new season. And what the Raiders do? The Raiders lose again?
Yeah. It's disappointing because, they were supposed to be like the next big thing in the AFC, but that's not really panning out.
Oh, you mean John Gruden the guy who basically took one team that was built by another coach to win the Super Bowl, and then went to the Raiders and basically ended up in the booth? Now he's back coaching, and you're not having success. Funny how that.
Yeah, I don't really have a dog in this fight, so
yeah. So anyway,
shout out to Michael Vick.
Sidebars. I managed to write. I had to write a thing for one of my papers. It was some argumentative essay thing, and I wrote it about pit bulls. Some fucking idiot writes this article for like the City Journal of some whatever, and I find this article, and it's about how it's just basically it makes the paper was actually to display logical fallacies, whatever, blah 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 blah, logical fellatio. So they. And it's all trashing pit bulls the whole time. And I managed to write like an entire thing about that without mentioning Mike Vick once, which I was pretty proud of myself, honestly. You almost can't say pit bull and Mike Vick without,
not if you're even somewhat familiar with football or human decency or anything like that. So, all right. Are we ready to get into our main topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So like we said at the top of the show, we are going to talk about our top 7 favorite Star Wars vehicles. We're going to do this like a countdown, like we've done all of our other top 5, 10, 11, 12 lists. And we'll go one person then the other and stagger from number 7 all the way up to number 1. And I think we decided that you're going to start. Now, before we get into it, I don't know how you based yours off of, but I just based mine off of pure emotion, just emotional connection I have to these specific vehicles for one reason or another. And I'll explain it as we go along. But yeah, that's, we haven't heard the point of the Diet Coke in a while.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll explain why I have a connection to these vehicles as we go along, as I'm sure Dave will as well. And I'm curious if you guys can actually predict what our number 1s will be. Say it in the chat, because we've got a whole bunch of people in the chat right now. Just, you only get one shot, though. Don't guess like 5 different things per person. But see if you can guess what each of our number 1 vehicles is going to be based on what you know about us listening to the show. And we'll see who's right at the end.
And if you don't get mine, then that's just...
Then turn off the show, because you don't even deserve to listen.
You're not. You're probably listening and not watching. Honestly.
Yeah, that's true too. All right, so let's get it started off. Dave.
All right, so I'm going first, 7. Right?
Yes.
So my number 7 is the X-Wing fighter.
Okay.
All right. The X-Wing, let's face it. We are dark side empathizers.
We are the Empire.
That's right. So the X-Wing is our basically being flown by our mortal enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, like, from playing it in video games and stuff like that, especially playing Battlefront, which is the most recent way that you can actually fly in an X-Wing.
Yeah, not the first time we're going to mention that game today, by the way.
For Battlefront, nice. So you got to hand it to the X-Wing. It's a. I mean, I have one back here. I have a Lego version. I have a Micro Machines version that I keep on my display. It's the vessel that carries Luke Skywalker to begin his road down the path. It's the fighter that represents the rebellion, and honestly, there's a lot about the X-Wing when you're looking at, like, I remember the original toy and relating it to, like, looking at the engines and it reminded me of like almost like a fighter jet, honestly, and so there was, the cockpit opens up and like Jason said, like, so a lot of these things there's more of an emotional attachment to.
Oh yeah.
So, like, for me, there was like a playability factor with the X-Wing as a toy when I was a kid, and it's a representation of kind of Star Wars in a way, and there's like the fact that you can configure it, like it had like a battle configuration and a travel configuration, which seems like when you think about it later on, it's like the X-wing doesn't need like, you know, lock air spoils and attack position, right?
Yeah.
Why? Why do they need to do
that? You're in the gravity of space, but
right. Aside from like spreading the cannons out like this, so that you're like, you know, your quad cannons now, like, which is okay. I could that part of it makes sense, but like describe it better that way. I don't know what. It's funny because when George had him in the original movie, you know, you wonder what he was thinking on these. Well, he was taking current in World War II like fighters from those timelines, and knows that like, oh, sometimes the wings fold, like the F-14 fighter, the wings folded, and you know, wings folded up on the Hellcats in World War II on the aircraft carrier. So like the wings move on this.
And I respect that. Like I respect that he did that, even though yes, logically it doesn't make any fucking sense at all. It looks awesome. It looks awesome. It seems cool.
And it looks like it. And even later on in my life, when you know I become a airplane mechanic, and you're looking at it, it's like, okay, these are kind of made to represent like air-fed, like regular turbine engines. Even the sound that they make, it sounds like a turbine engine. Mm-hmm. Now, great for when they're flying around, you know, on Hoth and Endor, but not so good when you're in the vacuum of space. Kind of tough to make that. So the only other thing I'll say about the X-wing, and that, you know, and again relating it to kind of playing it in video games and different things like that, you know, the X-wing has, you know, the creature comforts. It's like a, you know, think it pressurized cabin, so they don't have to be on oxygen mask. They have the ability to go into hyperspace. They have shields. So playing it in the game, and whatever game that you've ever played it in, and having this extra capability, a little bit more survivability of the pilot, which is in stark contrast to a lot of what the Empire does. And we'll talk about that more later. But that's my number 7. That's the X.
Excellent. I like it. So my number 7, I'm going straight to a video game. This actually has no reference in any movies at all, but I posted a picture of this in the Sidebar Cantina private Facebook group about an hour and a half ago. And that is the Chiss Talon Interceptor. This is a vehicle from the Old Republic. This is about 2 years ago now, maybe a year ago. The Old Republic went to the Chiss homeworld. They had this little mini expansion where they went into the unknown regions, and there was a storyline that happened within the Chiss Ascendancy on the Chiss homeworld. And you got this interceptor if you were an active subscriber during that time. And the reason I put this on here is because I don't know if the picture really does it justice, but it's such a sleek looking ship. It's what I envisioned a Chiss speeder would look like. It's got the blue glass shield for the cockpit. It's very aesthetic, and it's very smooth looking, and the sound it makes in game is fucking awesome. It has a really cool sound as it's flying along. So I knew I was going to pick something from the Old Republic. I wasn't sure what, but after going through some stuff, I'm like, yeah, that Chiss Interceptor, that was a really cool vehicle. So
it looks cool. I'm looking at the picture right now that you posted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty badass looking.
Yep. So that is my number 7. Not much else really to say about that.
So it makes me wonder, because in the Thrawn book, was it in the second Thrawn book where he intercepts Anakin?
That was in the second book, yeah.
In the second book, that
was in Alliances.
Yeah. So did it describe the type of fighter that he was flying?
They didn't really get into details at all. No, but they just mentioned that Anakin, it was like nothing Anakin had ever seen before, ship design wise.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I like it.
Cool. All right, moving on. Yeah.
Right.
My number 6, because we're staggering me twice, then you twice, and whatnot. So my number 6 is the Lucrehulk class battleship. Now you may be wondering, well, what the fuck is that? Well, most people know it as the Trade Federation battleship. So if you remember from the prequels, the Trade Federation had their big battleships was like a ring with the big globe in the middle. So you saw it at the beginning of episode 1, you know, with the blockade that was perfectly legal. Which they were kind of cool looking then. Very weak. The Wikipedia entry on these, by the way, mentions how they had some pretty weak defenses in the early models. But I didn't really start liking this ship until episode 2, Attack of the Clones, because if you remember towards the end when they're having the super secret meeting of the what do they call them, what was the opposite of the Justice League, the something of evil, from the old cartoons, god damn it, the Legion of Doom. Yeah, when the Legion of Doom was having their fucking super secret meeting on oh god, why am I drawing a blank on the planet? We were just talking about it in fucking Rebels. Geonosis. Jesus Christ.
My brain is completely not working. You can't expect me to remember shit.
But if you remember on Geonosis, just the globe portion, the round ball portion of these ships was parked on there. And when the shit hit the fan, they're like, fuck, get the ships into space. And they took off, and then they fucking re-merged with the rings. And that was the complete battleship. And I thought, okay, no, that's fucking cool. So yeah, it's one of the better designs, I think, of all of the new vehicles that we got in the prequels. I really enjoyed it. I think it's very cool. And especially if you go onto the Wikipedia page and you see some of the more detailed design of it, it's really, really neat. Very sleek design.
You're talking about like when the ball, I think probably my favorite part of all that was when the very beginning when they're on Geonosis and they're trying to escape off of Geonosis with the ball, and you've got the cannons concentrating their fire on it, and then they're like falling out of the sky. And this is where in episode 2, where I really appreciated sitting in the theater going like, wow, they did a really fucking good job with these battle scenes, because there was a lot of like almost like shaky cam type, like first person almost.
Yeah, it was very different from anything we'd seen.
Yeah, that they've seen. There's like such a massive battle that was going on, and you knew 90% of it was CGI, if not all of it. Sure. And when you're seeing the ball fall out of the sky, you know, and now suddenly like gravity's a real thing in Star Wars, and as it's falling, and then the dust cloud that comes across, you know, as it falls and hits, that's what I think of when I think of that. I think the only thing that takes me out of the rings and shit like that, like there's parts of the design of that remind me of like a Klingon thing, and it annoys me when a Star Wars thing or a Star Trek thing looks like a Star Wars thing. You know what I'm saying?
I could see that.
Yeah, and
I never made that correlation myself, but
there's like there's a shape to it, especially like for the front section. That reminded me of that, and I'm like, I don't like that. That bugs me.
All right.
It's funny too, because you know, again, sidebar, but we've probably talked about it before. I don't hate the other Star, franchise.
You're right.
You know, I guess we could just go ahead and like say Star Trek, but I don't hate it. I enjoy the movies. I enjoyed the movies. I thought the movies were good. I never got into the series. I was not a Next Generation guy. And we've had this conversation before where like, you know, people have gone in spurts through it. There's only one franchise for me though. Like there's a level of realism that Star Trek has that I appreciate, because it's more, I don't know, I think it's meant to be more like, hey, this is kind of an advancement of our own species. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it's an advancement of the human race on Earth interacting with the rest of the world, right? And obviously Earth is dominant because we're the best. Yeah,
damn
USA.
Right. Fuck yeah.
That's right. That's why there's a reason they based that shit out of San Francisco, which is kind of dumb based on the fault line and everything else, but that's beside the point.
Gay.
So, but that being said, when there's something that I see that looks like, oh, that thing looks like something similar to Star Trek, that shit annoys me, because it's like you're not being original. So anyway, I'll leave that. I'll just leave that alone.
Fair enough. All right. So moving on, let's give us your 6.
All right. So my number 6 is the Naboo Royal Starship.
Okay.
This is the again, funny how we both do an episode 1 type thing on our number 6.
Yeah.
My note that is actually on my thing here says it was shiny. The thing, it was one of those things where I really like the sleekness of this particular thing. Like, it's one of those. There was a starship and then there was a cruiser. The cruiser you see in episode 2, it's like what they fly in on right before they blow up the deck and kill another one of Padme's handmaidens.
Yeah,
but
it's a dangerous job, by the way.
Yeah, no shit. So the starship was the one that they flew out of Naboo in episode 1, ended up on Tatooine and on all that other shit. Had to get the hyperdrive. It's where you first see like how astromechs would be used in space. Like this is the kind of the first representation of like, all right, we've seen astromechs sitting in the back of X-Wings or whatever, but they're not really doing anything. Like repair that loose fucking stabilator, right? Say words that sound like things that fly, right?
Yeah.
But you don't really see like what they're doing. And then this is kind of like in our introduction to R2D2, you get to see what they're doing, which they're still not really doing a whole lot. They're like focusing on one area, a bunch of astromechs. Anyway, I'm not saying it was done well. I'm just saying I like the ship. I have somewhere in my Star Wars collection, I have a Hot Wheels version of that where it's like super chromed out and the landing gear come down and shit like that. I think it's shiny. It's like really sleek, and you know it just, the correlation with like Naboo and like, okay, we're like, they were so consistent when they did the starship designs for real quick, as I'm in the middle of this conversation, I'm thinking about it. Like, if you haven't figured it out, most of my shit is going to be flying things.
Sure. Yeah.
Just going to throw that out there, you know, for give people hints in the group that are trying to figure out what my stuff is. But all the starships that you see in Naboo, the Naboo fighters, like there's a consistency in design that I really appreciate. And ultimately it comes down to it was shiny.
Yeah, and as a reminder for the people who may have missed or forgotten our Phasma episode, Phasma's armor was made from the hull of one of those types of vehicles. I think it was Palpatine's personal ship that somehow ended up in the hands of the First Order with the remnants of the Empire, crashed on her home planet, and she used it at the end to build her armor.
Right, she dug that shit up.
Yep. So an interesting little fact about that. So
good. I forgot about that. Honestly, that would have been a good factoid.
That's what
if I had brought it Wikipedia up and had 6 tabs open.
All right, so you're number 5.
My number 5. The dogs are trying to break into my family room right now. They're like pushing.
We can all hear them.
Shit. My number 5. You're only going to know this if you're familiar with the Legends materials. And my number 5 is going to be ship. Now, do you know what I'm referring to when I say ship?
Hold on, I am replying to Lynn Brown in the chat. Okay, I'm sorry. Say that again. I totally wasn't paying attention.
Ship. Do you know what you know what I'm talking about when I say ship from Legends material?
No.
All right, so you would have had to have read the Legends material like through the part the Jason Solo stuff and all those.
Right. See, I stopped at the Vong trilogy because I was working through the Vong trilogy or the Vong series when they're like, okay, Legends is shit canned, no more of this. I'm like, well, fuck, I might as well not even finish.
Yeah. So ship, it's actually called the Sith Meditation Sphere, and it's actually an integral part of what is happening in some of the Legends thing, and it almost looks like a TIE fighter if you look it up online, and maybe I'll post a picture later of it from there's the only picture they have, like a drawing that's in Wikipedia, and it doesn't like it's not really how I pictured it, based on the description of the authors. But if you've read the Legends material, you've read through all those books, yeah, Isaac Sipe, Isaac Sipe, picking up what I'm laying down. It like had its own personality. It flew itself around. It would fucking disappear on you. Like, all right, I'm going to land here. And then that thing would go like, fuck it, I'm not here anymore. Boom. And it fucking would disappear. And it had like its own, because it was like, it was a vessel that used the dark side of the Force for traveling and everything else. So it wasn't like hyperdrives and shit like that. It wasn't really a mechanical type spacecraft. It was a Sith meditation sphere. So the Sith would use it to travel with, and it had a capability to fight as well. Probably would be higher on my list if I didn't have all the things, but Ship was just it was very well written how they used Ship and how its personality was in the Legends material. So yeah. that's my number 5.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't read those books, so I have no frame of reference, but I will trust that it was cool. Okay, before we get into my number 5, we're gonna take another trip to the Sidebar Cantina, because Lynn Brown mentioned something that I was gonna save for the end, and maybe we should still shelve this for the end. But the fact that there were really no good original vehicles in the sequel trilogy, or there haven't been up to this point. Like every vehicle that we've seen in the sequel trilogy have all been just slight upgrades to previously known vehicles, upgrades to fucking TIE fighters, Star Destroyers, X-Wings, fucking Imperial Walkers. It's all, there's been nothing new or original. Even fucking Kylo Ren's shuttle is just kind of like a different take on the old Imperial shuttles. So yeah, he brought up a good point. I was going to bring up that at the end, but yeah, I'm really disappointed with the lack of original vehicles in the sequel trilogy so far.
Well, disappointment or not, there might be a reason for that. As we look in and see what's going on in the timeline, for the canon as we know it through the movies, we're talking about a rebellion that had certain ships that they fucking scrounged and scavenged for, and made some upgrades to those vehicles, but not necessarily anything that would have been new, because they demilitarized. That was the whole point with the new rebellion, or the new Republic.
Yeah, that's true.
It was demilitarized, so they're not going to invest in making new ships. So for the Resistance, they're going to be, again, just like the Rebellion, they're going to be scraping things together that they could get, or buying from, if you buy into the allegory that was made in Last Jedi, where like basically the weapons makers are selling to both sides.
Sure.
That's a whole nother discussion. I don't even want to get into it. But that's, I think, even for the First Order, it's like, okay, we had, the Empire had their designs, and they designed things for a certain reason. And from what we know about how the First Order was made, it was basically just this portion of the Empire that the Emperor pushed into deep space to fucking, okay, you go out there and preserve yourself. And again, not necessarily being in this, aside from turning, making the Starkiller planet, what did they have that would be new? You know what I mean? It's basically just upgrading on technology they already had, because they didn't really have anything else. There wasn't this industry base that we witnessed in the Phantom Menace, in the Episode 2, because there was a whole weapons industry. What were they doing on Geonosis? What were they're building tanks and designing tanks and fueling the war that was going on. So it makes sense to me that there isn't. Would I appreciate new ships? Would I think it's kind of out of the ordinary if there was some? No, but I kind of understand why there isn't.
All right.
So anyway,
fair enough. So getting back into our list, we're going up to my number 5, and I think you're going to appreciate this one, Dave.
Okay.
And that is the GR-75 medium transport. Oh. Now, you may be wondering, well, what the hell is that? It's also known as the Rebel transport, the long white ship that you and I have spent literally hours on top of, wasting fools in Battlefront.
Yep.
Because in the original Battlefront, there are 2 maps where you get to hop on top of one of these things and just fucking snipe the shit out of people below you. There's one that's crashed on the indoor map. And then there's one on one of the Tatooine maps where it's just parked and you get to jump up there and fucking waste fools down below.
Yep. Yeah,
so
we've definitely added to our kill counts jumping on top of those fucking things.
Oh yeah. I've literally spent hours on top of one of these things, fucking killing fools and like keeping other people from jumping on and killing you. And yeah, just looking at the design, even from the Wikipedia page, looking at the back, you know, where it's got the tail section and you can like hide on either side of that back tail area. Yeah. And it's like bringing back all these Battlefront memories, but it's also a very iconic ship. If you think about going back to Empire and Jedi, you always see it flying around in the fleet. I think even in Return of the Jedi, there's 2 of them in the fleet. Just this massive fucking iconic ship. And I think one of them might even have been one of the ships that got destroyed by the Death Star. But
I think it was one of the first ones that did when it's fully operational.
Yeah. Yeah, because the thing, like I said, the thing is fucking massive. It's used to transport like fucking troops and supplies and fucking ships and all that. And it's just, I have such a connection to it from playing Battlefront so much. It's just such a cool ship, such a cool memory within Star Wars. So that is my number 5.
So before you get to your number 4, like just again, sidebarring into the cantina, I miss Battlefront. I miss playing Battlefront. I'll be honest with you. Like Battlefront 2, I keep going back to every once in a while I really want to get into it. Because even with Battlefront, it took me a while to like get into playing it. You know, I had to really like feel like I knew the game and knew the maps and everything else, and then I could kind of like move around and feel like I was doing things.
Sure.
Battlefront 2, I'm not getting there with it. It's just not happening. Even with the new maps, you know, it just is lacking. We could do a whole episode on Battlefront 2. The only reason I bring this up is because I think we mentioned it on a podcast before. Like video games for me are a way to like put my brain into a mode where I'm not necessarily thinking about anything else except for the video game. So like when I'm grieving, when I'm like depressed, when I'm when my brain's just not right, I'll sit down and I'll play video games for a while. And I haven't been able to play Battlefront just because it upsets me. It upsets me that I don't enjoy the game. So I played Destiny, right? So those of you out there that have played Destiny, you know, it's one of those giant world games. It's single player, first person shooter, and has huge maps. They released within the past couple weeks or maybe 10 days, they had released this Forsaken add-on to Destiny 2 that I ended up buying, and I beat it last night.
Nice.
You know, it took me about 3 days. It is again, it's one of those things where I feel like I don't have time to do things, but like I'll stay up late and like just like I said, it's video games for me, especially the first person shooter, the way for me to go. I put my hamster in the hamster wheel and let it run around in circles, and I'm thinking about is what's in front of me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it would seem weird that like shooting shit and blowing it up it would be therapeutic, but it kind of is. You know, even Call of Duty was like that for me for a while. But anyway, that being said, Destiny 2, after I finished, you know, I beat Destiny and I went back to like the main section there, and I'm like, we had a conversation before about like if they took an Old Republic type era and build it around the same type of game like Destiny is.
Yeah.
It would be the best fucking video game you've ever played. I mean, honestly, it would be. It would be so fucking good because the stories are so intricate. You know, what they do with the campaigns and even the campaigns for like Call of Duty and Battlefield and shit like that. Like Destiny, what they do with their campaigns and how interactive it is, you know, in different areas, and you're going and performing different missions and getting your upgrades and doing things like that. It's just done very, very well. And I'd love to see Star Wars lean towards something like that, you know, because Star Wars is about the galaxy. It's not just about like you put yourself in a couple of planets, and then sometimes you might get off in the basically the microgravity of the same planet that you're at. You're not in deep space doing anything, and there's no space battles in Destiny. But think of what you could do and like take the entire galaxy and put it into something.
Yeah, and that would be fucking phenomenal.
It would just be great. Like especially
it'd be a nightly orgasm as you fucking play the greatest Star Wars game ever made.
Yeah, it would be 3-4 hours a day easily of playing the thing. And I'd love to just take Old Republic off of the PC and throw it, like fucking take the skin off of everything that you have there and the characters and all that other shit. Because you can be a Titan, you can be dude. It's very, very similar. And go out there and just fucking just be so good. But anyway, Destiny 2, if you haven't played it or if you're interested in playing it, the Forsaken map, or if you've played Destiny in the past and you're like, I think I don't want to spend the money on a new one, it's very good. The storyline's very good. So anyway, that was the other things, not Star Wars related, the video game portion of the Cyborg.
But we brought it back to Star Wars, so it's all good. So getting back to the list, we're up to my number 4. This one's a pretty easy one. It's the Millennium Falcon. It's my only like well-known ship, I guess, in this. Like, anyway, it's the Falcon. It's one of the most iconic ships in all of sci-fi, not just Star Wars. And it's so funny too, because I remember watching New Hope back in the day, and early viewings, they'd go into the fucking hangar, Docking Bay 94, and
94.
And Luke would be like, "What a piece of junk!" And I would remember being confused, like, "How is that a piece of junk? It's a spaceship. Like, what exactly are you expecting?" Now, as we've gone along, and then especially after seeing Solo kind of brought it all back together for me, and kind of brought it all full circle. When you see the Falcon as a pristine, brand new under Lando's care ship to the fucking beat up hunk of junk that you see now. Yeah, it's iconic. It's such a good ship, and it really started to take on a life of its own in Empire Strikes Back, because they even make the joke in Family Guy when he has his few maneuvers, he'll lose them, and they
drifting lazily to the left.
Yeah, but whereas in Empire, you really start to see it move more. Like, I can think of that one scene specifically when you got the 2 Star Destroyers coming at each other with the Falcon in between, and it kind of does that spinning dive down between them.
The music. I can hear the music for it.
Yes.
Like going through the asteroid field music.
Yeah, and that's the other one. Yeah, the asteroid field.
Oh my God. And you see it, it's flying around. Like, if you're for the YouTube audience, I have one of my little Millennium Falcons here. And you see him, he does that turnover and woo, and it like flies down. Dude, it's
Yeah, because if you go back and you watch A New Hope, like especially the theatrical cut, the non-special editions, the ships don't really move all that much. They're not very agile. They don't have a lot of like quick cuts or anything. It's just the way he made the movie the first time. But he got better over time.
It was 1977. I mean, there was only so much you could do. And the things he was doing with actual models too.
Oh, yeah.
With the models and the camera angles and everything else. And by today's standards, there's no maneuvering at all. Even going into the effect that they use to go into the canyon to make their Death Star run is basically an in cockpit view of going down into that, because that would be way easier than trying to show the ship going down into it.
Right, and they just literally took a camera and they just dove it down into the model and everything.
Basically a full sheet of plywood that has the Death Star built on top of it with the fucking thing cut out. I've seen some of these props, man. If you're at a thing where you get to see like Star Wars props and things like that, go. However much money it is, pay it. Because if you're into the original trilogy and you just get a hard on for seeing like the ships and stuff like that. When I went to the Franklin Institute, had it displayed back in the early 2000s, right? And we took the kids. It was a fucking great day, especially for me. I don't know how much the kids can have it, but I had a huge hard on walking around in there.
Yeah.
And to see like some of the ships and the ones that they used in the movie, the level of detail in those fucking models was unbelievable. Unbelievable. You're looking at it and going like, I can't, this is. The fact that I'm looking at it at this size with this level of detail, and that there was a camera flying like this close to it to be able to pick up that detail. So they had to make that detail because they knew they were going to be so close to it with the camera. So fucking amazing. So fucking amazing. The real effects that were being done. Yeah.
Good shit.
Huge nerdgasm.
Yep. So that's my number 4, the Millennium Falcon. You knew it was going to be on the list somewhere. So there it is. All right, Dave. So we're switching gears back to you for your number 4.
All right. So my number 4 is the TIE Advanced. Okay. Or as most people would know, it would be Darth Vader's ship. Okay. It's the one he's flying in A New Hope.
With the curved wings.
It's got the curved wing structure. It's actually like the designator is like TIE Advanced X1 because it was an experimental ship. It was one of the few TIEs that had hyperdrive, had shields, different weapons components, things like that. I could, the list goes on. I've got a Lego version of it back there, which I'm not going to disconnect to go all the way back and get. But the thing that connects me to the TIE Advanced is the advanced, just the word advanced. It's like, okay, we took a TIE fighter with its maneuverability and everything else, and we made it capable of going into hyperspace and doing these things. And the only guy who's going to fly it is fucking Darth Vader, because he's the only one capable of flying this thing. And it's just playing the TIE fighter game. And everyone knows how big a hard-on I have for the fucking TIE fighter.
Yeah.
The original one on the PC back in the fucking 90s. When you get to a point where you actually can fly the TIE Advanced, and you're flying around, it's such a huge difference in the maneuverability and the capability of that fucking aircraft or spacecraft, whatever you want to fucking call it. That's where my level of realism with that game immediately puts me into that was a real thing. I was really flying it.
Yeah.
When I think back to those memories, I think it's like flying in a simulator. So, it's the advancement of the TIE fighter, and it's also the fact that Darth Vader was the one who flew it. Yeah. It just that's what brings it into my top 7.
Okay. Very good.
So that's my number 4, the TIE Advanced. Any comments on the chat about that? Len Brown went and saw the props. Yeah, you got to see the props. Got to.
Yep. So, all right.
So
your number 3.
My number 3. My number 3 is the Imperial class Star Destroyer.
Okay.
All right. We're talking about the Star Destroyer that you see when you're playing Battlefront and they're crashed all over fucking Jakku, or you're seeing them engaged in battle, looking up when you're playing on Jakku. The one that's sitting when you're watching Rogue One and it's sitting on top of fucking Jeddah, the city. You see it parked up there. It is from the very beginning, in the first minutes of our Star Wars lives, you see the Corvette, closely followed by what to me is one of the most iconic vehicles of the Empire, is that Imperial Star Destroyer. Yep. The size, the shape of it, and there's different variations, right? You have the Executor or the Executor or whatever. Yeah, you have the different versions of it. You have the early versions of it that you see in Clone Wars and things like that.
Which back then they were like the Republic cruisers, but they were that same design.
It's like the same shipbuilder, and advanced it to a point. But listen, this is where I was a little premature in talking about it, but I was going to save that conversation for now. I saw one of those fuckers when at the Franklin Institute. They had it behind this plexiglass. The thing was massive. I mean, it was like 6 feet long. The shape of it, when you walked up to it, you looked at it and you just went, "Oh my God, it's fucking perfect." And when you're flying and flying around it in Battlefront, when you're doing the flying out in space stuff and you're flying around it, and you have to hit certain parts of it, and it's just, let's face it, it's badass. It is a symbol of the Empire's strength. It's like pulling into port with a fucking battleship.
Yeah.
You know, if you go old school, go back to World War II or someplace like that. Like, here's my fucking 16-inch guns. I got a whole fuck ton of them. And oh, by the way, I got a whole shitload of TIE fighters stored in the fucking belly of this. What's up? What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? And again, because this is something that you see within the first minute of Star Wars, you see this ship and you see the level of detail of this thing in space. And then having seen that thing in person, it very easily could be higher on my list. But this is my number 3.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a good one.
How are we doing time-wise?
We got plenty of time, actually. Good. Wow. We may have to take some more trips to the Sidebar Cantina. But moving on to my number 3. My number 3 is the all-terrain armored transport. Some people would call it the AT-AT. The correct people would call it the AT-AT.
The AT-AT.
So, I mean, this goes back to the toys for me. I've mentioned multiple times on the podcast, when I was young, God, I must have been about 7 years old, my mom found a used AT-AT at like a yard sale or a garage sale or something. You know, we didn't have a lot of money back then, so I didn't have much. But whenever she found Star Wars stuff, because she knew, like, even at that young of an age, I was a fucking Star Wars fanatic. She would pick the shit up for me if she could. And she got me this. It was like 3 things, actually. It was the fucking AT-AT. It was a snow speeder. And it was the Millennium Falcon. All 3 of which I still have over in Starkiller Studios. But the AT-AT, for some reason, I fucking just absolutely loved. It's that intimidation factor, just these lurking fucking beasts just slowly walking towards you that are practically indestructible. And it got better with later movies, like especially Rogue One. You had mentioned it with the Star Destroyers. Also, when they were on Scarif and they were trying to steal the plans, and you had that moment where you can hear them, you can hear the AT-ATs coming. And then through that misty cloud, you see the head eventually poke through. And it's like, oh, shit. And then you had that other shot where, what was it, Baze shot the hand cannon at it. The fucking missile goes, boom, knocks it right in the side of the head. It kind of fucking shakes it off and then just keeps going. I'm like, that is fucking awesome. And my AT-AT toys, I played the shit out of that. Me and my cousin Jeff would play with that for hours and hours. Every single day. It was.
Is that the same AT-AT that's in the studio?
It's the same one. That same one that my mom bought for me, like at a yard sale or something back in fucking 1985 or some shit. So it was, it was great. And yeah, I've always fucking loved the AT-AT. It's just been a favorite vehicle of mine forever.
Hey, you're right about it. Again, it's. Thinking of the Star Destroyer when you see it in A New Hope, and some of the ships that you see in A New Hope, the AT-ATs in Empire set the tone for the movie. You know, the ominous sound of boom, 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 this thing walking towards you. And and you have a scene even like in the movie where you see the AT-AT like kind of cocked to one side, like it bends one leg and straightens the other to turn its head to fucking shoot at something out of the sky. Like,
it's a little impractical design wise,
like the extent of its maneuverability. But it was like cool to see, like it like okay, boom.
But you think about them. Yeah, you think about them in this universe where people have shields, right? Like everybody has a fucking shield that they can generate. So they gotta put something on the ground that gets through the shield that can then fucking knock out this base or whatever that they're trying to hit. Otherwise, they just obliterate everything from fucking space. We saw that at the end of Rebels, of season 3. So yeah, that was my number 3. I'll always have a soft spot for the AT-AT.
That's the the practicality of like warfighting, where you do and you soften a target from the air, but if they have a shield, then you need to have the ability to do a ground assault.
Yep. And then just a sidebar to that, like every other iteration of it, I have not liked. I did not like the version of the walkers in the prequels with the Republic ones, and I don't really like the big weird looking ones in fucking Last Jedi with the fucking weird gorilla arms. I don't know what that was about, but a classic AT-AT. So that's my number 3. My number 2, I might be cheating a little bit with this. We didn't really talk about this beforehand, but this is kind of a vehicle. It is the Death Star. So
it's not cheating. It's if you look in it's classified as a if you go into Star Wars databank and you go in there, the Death Star is a vehicle. Absolutely. It has the capability to fly through space. Yeah, absolutely. It's not cheating. I'm giving it to you.
All right, and I'm going to the original Death Star now, not
DS1.
The second one. Yes, and it's just the thought, just trying to wrap your mind around the concept of a fucking moon-sized space station built from fucking scratch. It's obviously this universe, you got to suspend your disbelief a little bit, but just that whole concept is just nothing that anybody had ever thought about before. And it all came from fucking Lucas's brain. And God, just the image of the Death Star, the fucking power of it. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's, you talk about iconic, you talk about a pure devastation. And it's the plot, which most of these movies revolve around, either stealing the plans for the Death Star or blowing up the fucking Death Star or blowing up the second fucking Death Star. It's kind of the focal point for a lot of the plot of these movies. And it's, yeah.
So just in the chat right now, there's some good add-on conversations to your Death Star. And one of them is, if the Death Star is considered a vehicle, is Starkiller Base considered a vehicle? I would say no. It's a planet.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
They go and they used a planet or a moon or whatever it was, and they used it, put something into it. They don't take that planet and fly it somewhere else. They're destroying things from where they are.
Right.
The Death Star, they're taking the Death Star and putting it into the Alderaan system to be able to destroy Alderaan.
Yeah, because apparently it has hyperdrive and everything else. So.
Yeah, it has everything. I have the we talked about 1 or 2 episodes ago where they're going to have a YT 1300 like Haynes manual like breakdown, which I'm obviously going to buy. But I have one for the Death Star. It's like the DS1 Haynes manual where it breaks down all the compartments and shit. The other thing I'm going to segue into, and Bronco Fett brought it up. I'm with you on the Death Star. Like, just let's face it, it's a fucking Death Star. I mean, it brought something into our vernacular that nobody had ever used before, ever. The Death Star. Like I think any non-Star Wars fans know what the fucking Death Star is. So it's obviously has this level of being that iconic. But for me, what really made the Death Star that much cooler was The Force Unleashed, when I played The Force Unleashed. Because you're getting to go through portions of the Death Star where you're actually seeing how, even though it's not canon, you're seeing how like it's the weapons function, everything else. Because you're right towards the end when you're going through the Death Star and you have to go through certain sections of doors closing and opening that doesn't make much sense and shit like that. But it gave me like the sense of like, yeah, okay, these chambers would have to, you have to generate power through these chambers to be able to combine the fucking energy to do this. And it was cool. Like Bronco Fett had brought up, The Force Unleashed was freaking awesome going through the Death Star. And I would agree. Yeah. And I hadn't played The Force Unleashed until fairly recently, like within the past year since we started doing the podcast. And it was free on Xbox.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. That's your number 2.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we're moving straight to your number 2.
So my number 2 is the Millennium Falcon. Okay. I got a little guy here. I got circa 1979 in all its perfection with working landing gear, the fucking radar dish and the fucking cannon all functioning. This thing is badass. For all the reasons that we already stated, it's the Millennium Falcon. I think it's the vehicle that's going to transcend the Skywalker legacy when we go through the franchise.
Yeah,
it's whatever happens after this. I think the Falcon's going to be involved. So long as Chewbacca's alive, so long as somebody is there to be able to fucking fly this lucky piece of shit.
Yeah, it outlived Luke, so
yeah, and it outlived Han. And Lando's still around, so we'll see how that goes. But And now you have Ray, essentially piloting it, and it's been handed over. So I think it's one of the first big Star Wars toys I ever had. Being able to take off that back section, and like you had the chest, the fucking game. What the hell's the name of the game? Oh my god! I can't believe I got
whatever the space chest was. I don't know. Did it have an official name?
It did. Of course it did. It's Star Wars. Everything had a fucking name. But yeah, so it had the smugglers compartments, and it had like this stuff, and you just barely squeeze Han and Chewbacca in the front of it. I never had a Chewbacca growing up. I had a Han, and I put Han and Luke in there. So it was a great toy. You fucking pick it up and you're like flying it around.
Oh yeah.
My brother-in-law had the newer one that came out. I guess I want to say it was like before. It was obviously before Force Awakens. Like they had released a Millennium Falcon, much bigger than the toy I had. Like, so the original Millennium Falcon was actually probably, I don't know, however big this is, right? Yeah. And it's great for the audio audience watching. Look, my hands are moving. This one, this toy is more to scale with the actual figures, so it's fucking enormous. It's enormous. I'm like, the thing is easily 4 feet long.
Damn,
like it's huge. It's a huge toy. I've got it up in my attic crawl space because I've really no place else to put it that's going to stay preserved.
Yeah.
But it makes fucking the noises and everything. And I would have loved to have got it out here and played with it. Or maybe hang it from the ceiling or something. It'd be fucking great. Turn it into a lamp. But yeah, the Falcon. I mean, what else can you say? It again, it's one of the iconic vehicles of Star Wars, and it's something that again is outliving, everything else we see change, even if it's only slightly. The Falcon has been almost stayed the same, except for Solo in the beginning. Then Han.
Yeah, but even then, you see the progression of it, and I don't hate the way they treated the Falcon in Solo. I think it was fine the way with the escape pod in the front, and the way it was all sleek and everything, and
it made sense. It made sense the way they presented it with like Lando as fastidious as he was. That's the second time. Having it clean and like just everything on the interior, like real super new and everything. And then, Han getting in there like, dude, this thing is fucking way too nice. And then just letting it go to shit.
Yep. So, all right. I apparently can't tell time. So we're pretty much over now. So let's wrap up the list here.
I was going to say, I thought.
Yeah, I can't fucking tell time for shit, but that's fine. I'll figure it out at some point. So you're number one.
Yeah, we're over now, aren't we?
Yeah. A few minutes is fine.
Yeah, I looked in my watch specifically just because. Anyway,
yeah,
I tried to prevent this.
I tried to skip the football talk.
You were trying to save it to the end, but you have to talk about it. It's a part of us now.
Fair enough.
My number one. What do you think my number one is?
I mean, looking behind you, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 TIE fighters. I don't know how many TIE pilots. You've only talked about TIE fighters and TIE pilots. Oh, I don't know, 300 fucking times over the course of this podcast. So I'm going to guess. I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say it is the original TIE fighter.
It is. It is the TIE LN, or it would be indicated as the standard line version of the TIE fighter. The twin ion engine starfighter built by Sinier Fleet Systems. The TIE fighter to me is this specifically is because of the TIE fighter game. Yeah. My infatuation and my huge giant erection for the TIE fighter is it all comes down to that game. And the way the simulation ran and the realism that it kind of put me into it, I felt like I could get in there and I could fly it. It's, looking through, I went through a stage where I had a Lego cockpit of the TIE fighter, so if you look through it, I have to go through some of my old pictures. I might post it up it's probably on my Instagram page, honestly, at Philly Dave. It might have been one of my early stuff. When I was traveling, I had a Lego TIE pilot, and I'd put like I'd use the cockpit window as like a filter, and I'd take pictures of shit like through like it's looking through the cockpit of the TIE fighter. It's the fucking coolest, man. It's the coolest uniform. The fucking, especially, oh my god, the Black Series figure, Jesus Christ, it's so fucking cool. You know, with the Empire logos on the fucking helmet, it's a sacrificial lamb. There's no shields. You got twin cannons, and it's light as shit, so it's extremely maneuverable. And the idea was that you put as many of these things in the air to attack something at once, and it had ejection systems, and like it says on Wikipedia that, you know, the ejection systems were rarely used because, you know, you basically you're ejecting yourself into the vacuum of space, ultimately to die oxygen starvation and fucking heat deprivation.
Yeah, and honestly, like, you're dead before you even realize it's time to eject in most of these space battles. Anyway.
The way that we see the TIE fighters end, but yeah, it's just really it comes down to me. It's the involvement in the TIE fighter game, how much time I invested in that game, and really felt like I was a TIE fighter pilot. Combine that with the uniform, combine that with how fucking, it's just like everything makes sense. You know, it's got the twin ion engines, and it's just the fucking. I could talk about it. Honestly.
Now, just real quick before we move on to my number one, how did you feel about the scene in Force Awakens when Finn and Poe took the TIE fighter? Because I felt like that was a really cool scene. Like, it really kind of showed the acceleration and the speed of the TIE fighters from the pilot's perspective. You know, Poe's like, oh shit, this thing really moves, you know?
Yeah. So all the iterations of the TIE fighter, like I have like the Micro Machines version of the TIE Bomber, the TIE Interceptor. They're just like slight variations. A TIE Bomber was obviously had a specific purpose. The Interceptor was designed to be a little bit more maneuverable and faster than the regular TIE fighter. Talking about the First Order TIE fighter, it's interesting what they decided to do by putting like a gunner position in the TIE fighter. I mean, when I watch it, I don't necessarily know how I feel about it. They obviously made upgrades to the engines, and if you're putting an extra body in there to actually run the cannons, that means that there's like, I don't know, there's a different dynamic to the fighter itself. So I don't hate it. The version I have is one of the Bluetooth speakers. Like, I have this Millennium Falcon Bluetooth speaker.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And it'll play the whole fucking thing too, right? It's a Bluetooth speaker, and I have the First Order TIE Fighter version. Same thing. It's a Bluetooth speaker.
Nice.
Good grief. Dogs are really trying to get in here.
Anything else on your TIE fighter before we move on to my number one?
No, go for your number one.
All right. So a couple people already guessed it in the chat. You'd already mentioned it earlier. My number one is the Imperial Star Destroyer. You talk about the fucking symbol of the Empire. It's the fucking, like, you think the Death Star is like that thing, but it's really not. It's the fucking Star Destroyer is the dick of the Empire. You know, this is my fucking big dick that I'm going to swing around, and I'm going to show everybody.
And the best representation of that was it fucking just floating over Jeddah.
Oh yeah.
You know, inside, you know, suborbital, fucking sitting there over a fucking city. It doesn't get, like you said, the dick of the Empire. Like, take this shit right here. I want you to look up, and all you see is this motherfucker.
Yep. And it's the design is so simple, but it just symbolizes the Empire. It's that dull gray, and it's just like one angle. It's just like a triangle, but it's just so intimidating at the same time. It's fucking awesome.
I'm gonna you talk to the audience. I think the dogs have to go out, and I don't feel like cleaning piss off the floor. Keep talking.
All right, you do that. But yeah, and we had a couple of people in the chat guess it too. I think it was Big Lovin', and who else was it? Yeah, you guys guessed it. So you do know me pretty well, listeners. But yeah, I mean, what else is there to say about the fucking Star Destroyer? It's intimidating. It looks cool. It looks fucking powerful. It's making me laugh because of Dave. And we had mentioned other iterations of it as well. I don't hate the version that's in the Clone Wars or in the prequels, the Clone War era. I guess it's not as cool, but it's like Dave said, you can start to see that evolution happening. I think they officially call it the Republic Cruiser. I'm still on the fence of how I feel about the versions in the sequel trilogy, even though the Dreadnoughts are pretty cool just because it's even fucking bigger. But I don't know if I like the completely flat pizza design of the Dreadnought. It's the classic Star Destroyer look is still my thing. And, Dave's mentioned like he always envisioned himself as like a TIE fighter pilot. I envision myself as like the commander of a Star Destroyer. It doesn't have to be a super Star Destroyer or anything like that, just a standard Star Destroyer. But like that would be my Star Wars fantasy, is to be the fucking commanding officer on one of those things. Or even a helmsman. You get to actually like fly it around.
Yeah, you're down in there doing Empire stuff.
Yeah, lots of Empire stuff.
Lots of Empire stuff.
But no, it doesn't get any better than the Star Destroyer. It's perfectly symbolizes the Empire. And as we've mentioned before, we are all about the Empire. So,
fuck yeah, dude.
But that's it. That's our list. Hopefully you guys like it. If you want to give us any feedback, if you want to tell us like what you liked as opposed to ours, hit us up in our newly renamed private Facebook group, the Sidebar Cantina, formerly the All Things Star Wars private Facebook group, but it is now officially the Sidebar Cantina, fresh with logo that was a combined effort between Dave and a couple of the listeners, adding, changing things, and I think it turned out really well.
Yeah. Hey, you got Twi'leks bookending the word cantina.
Yeah.
Shapely Twi'leks. What can't go wrong. I do want to really quickly.
Yes.
Since we're already over time anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry, you've already actually created extra work for yourself because you can't tell time.
Why does this all fall on me, by the way? That's what I want to know.
Because you have the shit to fucking pull the audio. I don't have it. Teach me how to do that shit, and then I'll help you out. But until then, others deserving mention.
Oh yeah, I had a couple actually.
So one of those is the Lambda shuttle. Okay, the standard shuttle that you see that they're stealing. You see them stealing it in Rebels, but to me, it's the one that they're stolen one that they're flying into Endor.
Yeah,
that iconic, like as it's flying, it goes from the triangle shape when it lands, and then as it gets airborne, the wings come down. My cousin Rick had one. It was so much fun to fucking play with. And again, you talk about Battlefront when there's two shuttles are parked on the Endor map, and you're like on top or underneath those, running around between the two buildings. The Lambda shuttle is one of those.
Yeah,
that I think is deserving mention. Also, I'll just run down my list real quick.
Sure.
The Ghost from Rebels. I think the Ghost is one of those that needs mentioning.
Yep, I agree.
As one of the, it's grown on me. It really has.
I like I like the concept of the Phantom, the attached shuttle that can go off and do its own thing, though that's very Star Trek-ish. Ish. All right, let's be careful. Be careful. It is a Corellian built. It has that feel to it. Like it's not a YT model, but I like how it's represented in Rogue One. I like how it made its way into Solo, as being mentioned, or at least that type, that spaceship type. You mentioned the AT-AT, which is great. I didn't, like I said, I didn't mention any land-based vehicles, but the Snowspeeder, again, kind of one of those things one of those integral parts when they're flying in Hoth, and I have a couple of copies of those over here too. Yeah,
and highly underrated is the ATST. Okay, I think again, let's relate this back to toys. This is one of the few big Star Wars toys I had was the ATST. I remember.
Oh yeah, the ATST. Okay.
Yeah, the ATST. So the toy, when you had it and you got it all put together, I remember I fucked up one of the stickers. I put I was really into putting the stickers on these when you take them out of the box, you had to put a sticker. I fucked up one of the window stickers. Really pissed me off. Because I tried to peel it off a little bit, and it was always peeled off just a little bit. Fucking made me mad that I fucked it up. But the best part of it was it had the button on the back of it, so you would make it walk. So like when you had it, you hit the button, the fucking legs were like ching 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 ching, so you could like make it walk around. It was such a great toy, and it wasn't like, you know, AT-AT was like huge, but it was like very immobile. Like you moved it. Like now I'm pressing a button to make the legs move and stomping out Ewoks with it, like, kill these fuckers. It's yeah, and it makes my others deserving mention.
All right. I had 2 honorable mentions. First is, oh shit, I just lost it. Where'd it go? Because I want the official name. It's the Republic Attack Gunship. If you remember from Attack of the Clones, the drop ships that came in when the fucking clone army first showed up, that like Yoda was on.
Oh yeah,
and the one that like the Jedis hop on, they've got the gun pods that had the little mini Death Star fucking guns on them. You remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those things. Because the design reminds me of, like, somebody compared it to a Black Hawk helicopter, where, you know, it's got the fucking guns on the side, but it's also like a transport. It drops down, like people hop on real quick, and it fucking gets the fuck out of Dodge. There was
a weird mechanical thing too, like because the sides opened up like a helicopter, but then there was like this thing that was happening in the top. I never really understood what was going on mechanically with that.
I think it was just the loading of missiles. Those were like missile trays or something that kept loading the missile parts. But yeah, it had a lot of weaponry on it. It was almost a land-based troop transport. Very, very cool. And then I had one dishonorable mention. The fucking weirdest thing, like I'm still trying to wrap my head around, like what the fuck were they thinking? And that is the Solar Sailor, which was Count Dooku's ship. Also at the end of Attack of the Clones, the fucking ship where the fucking sails come out as it's going into space. It's like, what the fuck? Like, now it just feels like you're just doing something just to try to do it, just to see if it actually looks good in the fucking movie. But
I want to say that there's another time in Star Wars, like I think it's in a book where they talk about like that particular version of that starship.
Yeah,
and I can't really think of it. I can't put my mind on it. I agree with you.
It's so weird. It's yeah.
But in the same token, I like the fact that like some of the smaller transports that Obi-Wan and Anakin are flying in the beginning of Attack of the Clones, or the Attack of the Clones, or no, in the beginning of
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, they're starfighters.
And so you have Obi-Wan when he flew to Geonosis and he flies into that ring that gives him the hyperspace capability and everything else. That's something that they continue on with. Like I mentioned it
in Rebels. That came up in Rebels a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hey, destroy the ring before they get to it. That way they can't go to hyperspace. I like that. Conceptually, I like that because then you could take a smaller, more agile fighter without the hyperspace capability and have that add-on. So I think that's
because typically a starfighter this size could not get into space on its own. You know. Anyway, so let's close this up because we're over time and this is going to be a bitch now trying to extract the audio from this, but fuck it, we'll figure it out. For next week's topic, don't know what we're going to do yet. My busy week is going to continue, so it's going to have to be another easy topic like this, but I think we had fun with this topic. I think the listeners liked it. It's you know, a chance for us to just kind of blow through a fun top list. I don't know if we'll do another list next week, but we'll do something easy and fun like this again.
Yeah, I'm responding to a Tony Ferrari's pegging Twi'leks.
No, don't the Twi'leks peg you? Isn't that the point?
Apparently.
Yeah. So, anything else, Dave, before we close out the show?
No, I don't know what this wee shit is about extracting the audio because that sounds a lot like your job.
Oh, I hate you.
Some mouse in your pocket or something. Hey, we'll trade. I'll extract the audio. You write 2 papers in the next 4 days.
All right. Well, you
2
also have
papers.
You also have to come down to San Antonio and finish my course for me then, and then I get to go home to New Jersey. How's that?
Well, I'd go home in New Jersey pretty quick too because I fucking failed that course almost immediately.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Don, sorry you came in late. You missed most of the show, but fuck it. You can listen to the audio, or you can watch it back on YouTube. That's the thing. If you're listening to us on audio and you're like, oh fuck, I missed the live YouTube. All of these videos. Yeah, all the videos are saved to our YouTube page, so you can go back and rewatch them at any time.
Yep, you can see me playing with my dolls again.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, you can listen to the podcast a week before the audio version goes live.
That's true. However, still subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher, however you get the podcast, because I know I've actually interacted with some people that don't use iTunes, they're using Stitcher or whatever. Yeah. However you do it, give us 5-star reviews. If you're watching us live on YouTube right now, still give us the downloads, because we like seeing the download numbers as far as the podcast goes.
Because that helps us gauge like what topics are doing well, what ones aren't.
Exactly. It's that whole Nielsen
how many
thing
people are listening.
Yeah, exactly.
So even if you watch the YouTube, download the audio anyway, because we said so.
All right, boss.
All right. Well, that's it for us. Thank you, everybody who joined us in the chat. Thank you, everybody who's listening on the audio. We'll figure out what we're going to do next time. Join the private Facebook group, the Sidebar Cantina. And until then, Dave, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you. What do I click?